Hello everyone, I'm Salo Steinvortz. I'm your host and producer for Celebrate 2026. I'm also a FEMBA 2026. And this season of Drive Time is super special because we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Drive Time. So kudos to Dylan, Manny, and everyone behind the scenes for bringing the stories to light of what makes Anderson great. It's also great because, not being biased, but it's our graduating class. And what a better way to have Jon Muth here sitting in front of us. I'm very proud and honored to bring success and share success with everyone. But before we get started, I do want to do this exercise with the listeners and the viewers of closing your eyes and imagine that you're going to start the program on a Monday, and that Friday you quit your job. And you don't know what's going to happen, but something in you tells you that this is the right decision to make. That is what Jon did. While this was happening, he was also roasting coffee beans in his home with what seemed to be a toaster oven.
Yeah, looks like it.
And his first two clients were actually FEMBA classmates. Shout out to Nikolai and Andy, which, by the way, which Andy was it?
Andy, who's in Tuesday, Thursday, Songreal, I think.
All right. Oh, so shout out to Nikolai and Andy Songreal. Thanks for doing that. And that's essentially how Unbound Brews started. Unbound Brews is a coffee company focused on delivering high-quality coffee with the convenience modern life demands while maximizing the impact for the farmers who grow it. But before launching the company, Jon was also a professional in corporate. He was working in strategy and planning at Beyond Meat. He was doing advisory deals as a CPA at KPMG. And today he's building, scaling Unbound Brews while starting, continuing, and almost finishing his MBA. Along the way, he also has run marathons, biked thousands of miles across the country, and even adopted a dog last month.
Yeah.
And I do want to read just a vignette about what makes you who you are, and also the success of your company.
Yeah.
One classmate has bought a bag of his coffee for 88 straight weeks.
Yep.
And you recently signed an agreement to acquire a coffee distribution business for $500,000 in annual revenue. So
It's technically not closed yet, but hopefully by the time this airs, we'll officially, April 1st is when it's supposed to close. So.
It's still great milestones. And I'm so proud and, like I said, so privileged to have you here. So thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you, Sal.
So I want to do just a quick podcast breakdown for you, typical MBA fashion.
Yeah.
Breaking this down in 3 buckets. 1, who were you before Anderson? 2, who are you now? Any peaks and valleys? And 3rd, who do you aspire? What do you aspire to be? And now with you, one exercise I want to do is, do you remember the first interaction we had?
I remember we were at the park at LACMA. That was notable, but I feel like maybe we had like a brush in, like, hello, hi, how's it going? But then I met your family. I mean, I think I've had a tough journey with being an entrepreneur by all means, but to raise a family during FEMBA is really special. So I got to meet Salo's family, and that was just such a wonderful, warm moment.
That's the moment I would say it was our first time interacting too. You switched to my section, and everyone knows about Jon because of his success. He's super charismatic. You do have this like open persona, like smile of you that does come so genuine. And we knew from Hi Goodbye, being in the class, knowing about you, everyone knows about you, Jon, and the success. But I think the park was also the one I had in mind. So I'm glad we're aligned on that one. But awesome. All right. So now the mic is yours. I'm so happy. Take it from here. Maybe start telling us who you were before the program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you started off with a big tidbit where I quit my job the Friday before the program started. It was definitely like something that I had to do a lot of thinking about. I felt like in the end it went down to starting off on the right foot, realizing that my career was going to take a different trajectory and wanting to focus on how I can accomplish that with FEMBA. But to take a step back, I mean, I started off my career as an accountant, trying to make accountants cool again. I mean, a lot of classmates take accounting for the first time in the Anderson program, and they're pretty overwhelmed by it, being engineers or scientists in the background or in their background, and I can politely help them out on debits and credits and all that stuff. But I only made it just under 2 years, so it wasn't fully right for me, but it was a great place to start my career. And then I went to Beyond Meat. That story really starts with going to the Natural Foods Expo, which is actually happening this week as we speak. I went to it yesterday. The environment there is just so incredible. The energy, just the new innovation in food and beverage. Nowadays, they talk a lot about protein and GLP-1 and just understanding how you can drive that through the food system. And so I went to the show back in 2018, and it took a couple years before I realized I wanted to jump into the food and beverage industry. That actually came from my dad. His first job out of college was a Coca-Cola truck driver. He ended up growing his career for over 40 years at Coca-Cola in a variety of roles, and really taking his inspiration of when I was going to soccer games growing up. I was going to the grocery store and checking on product, making sure all the labels were matching up with the front of the shelf, and just like the customer interactions. Back then we still had Bluetooth in the cars, and so I was listening to the calls back and forth about how to run a food business. And so I took a lot from his experience to then go and work at Beyond Meat. And they're a high flyer. I mean, there was a lot of pressure to perform and grow the company as a public company, and I got to experience that for 3.5 years. And that was really where I cut my teeth in the food and beverage industry on my own, and I learned a lot from it. And when I decided that it was time to kind of take a different path, and my Anderson experience was beginning, I realized that entrepreneurship was a real opportunity. MBA is a great foundation for it. I was leaving the career and realizing, I learned a lot and could really apply it to my own venture. But I'm not an ideas person. I'm an accountant by trade. I'm a pretty risk adverse person. And so it really took a lot of thinking and just thinking about what the coffee system looks like. And in the end, it also goes down to who supported me along the way. So you reference Andy and Nikolai, you reference Shelby, my #1 customer of 88 weeks in a row. I did my research on that. Yeah, Shelby and Ariel.
Shelby and Ariel.
Yes.
Shout out to you guys.
Yes, I'm there on her street every week, or if we're in class together, which this quarter we happen to be. So we get to, always make sure we get to see each other every week. And so it's really, I couldn't have done it without that support.
And taking a little step back, so you chose to become an accountant. Why was that?
So actually on my mom's side, my mom's an accountant. And so she started off her career, and I said I never wanted to do what she does. But I eventually learned why accounting is important, and so I really felt like it was a strong base. And KPMG in New York, I definitely learned a lot about how a business operates as sort of a advisory side of the business. And I felt like I think it was one of the most special moments of my career because of the caliber of people you work with every day. And so I definitely think I look back on that and realize I was around a lot of really smart, hardworking people, and they kind of taught me early on kind of what that looks like for the rest of my career.
And I find that being in the business program, one of the courses that is going to be with you, or it's better in your best interest to know, is really accounting.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to start your own business. So
sure.
I'm sure you already kind of checked that. You don't need to outsource any of that information.
So I still do my own debits and credits. There is an unsexy side to entrepreneurship of doing the accounting journal entries. But with this transaction that you referenced, we are going to pick up an accounting system to be able to transition the whole business. It's time that I stopped doing it.
In a good way. It got big enough that you're I can do it. But essentially, you didn't have to do it from day one, which is really amazing. So the accounting, cool.
Yeah.
Then why coffee? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, it started as a hobby. I think a lot of...
You were a coffee drinker from day one, I suppose?
For sure. Nothing beyond your average person. I didn't own an espresso machine. I was more of a pour over, French press. I mean, during COVID, I was definitely picking up some understanding how different brewing methods work. But it was while I was at Beyond Meat that I picked up roasting. This toaster oven roaster that I had. I mean, I bought it on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, you can get them for a couple $100, and then you buy green unroasted coffee. And just watching that process, I like to compare it to popcorn. Most people have watched popcorn, the process, and understand that it goes through this micro explosion and then bursts in flavor and aroma. It's almost inedible. It is inedible before it, and now it becomes like a really indulgent product. So coffee is similar to that, and you're watching this toaster oven operate, and it was a really great way to improve my coffee game. And yeah, it's not worth the time, 30 minutes to do it. That's why most people don't. But for me, it was really interesting, and I took it as something that I was really passionate about, kind of diving a level deeper on. And that, I think, that experience gave me a lot of insight that I then just looked to expand on once I made the decision to consider entrepreneurship in coffee.
So you started drinking coffee, would you say in undergrad or high school?
I remember my first sip. That was Coca-Cola Black, because my dad worked for Coke. And I know exactly when that was, because Coca-Cola Black, for those that are even familiar with it, only lasted a year. So 2007 was the year that it was in the market. So I was 12. It was not exactly the best experience. I think I was a little early on the front of coffee. But I remember distinctly it was more or less a overnight, all-nighter. I was pulling my sophomore year of college, and I remember I had a Frappuccino from this company that many people know well, and they get credit for getting me my first true sip of coffee, but since then I like to support smaller players than them.
Nice. And hanging in this time frame for a little bit, so, okay, you started drinking coffee. It's helping you in school, also for the flavor. 9 a.m, I need my caffeine.
Yeah.
And you started roasting it. It sounded like for a sport, not yet for pleasure. But when were you like, hey, this is something that I could take and make it into a business?
Yeah. I think everyone's entrepreneur story is different. I think for me, I realized that I wanted to really be methodical about it. I mean, it goes back to my sort of risk aversion and accounting background of just making sure that I understood exactly what the business opportunity was before I jumped headfirst into it. So I did a lot of interviews, similar to what we experienced in Capstone, of just talking to, and this was before we had Capstone. So, it was enlightening to then realize that we actually have a program at Anderson that does exactly what I did 2 years prior. And so I did a lot of interviews.
This is clearly before the program.
This was like right as the program started.
Got it.
Yeah. And then I picked up more roasting, meaning I was roasting beyond what my daily consumption was, because I just wanted I got maybe 20 different origins, different countries, different kind of varieties within a country to test on my little toaster oven roaster. So I was roasting all these coffees, and they were piling up in the corner of my kitchen, on my kitchen counter, and I couldn't drink them. So I realized I've got to figure out what to do with these. And so I ordered some brown paper bags. I created a logo in Microsoft Word. This was before I knew about Canva or anything that was like more technologically advanced. And I created a logo for Johnny's Beanery. I mean, that's where the name came from.
The OG name.
Yes, the OG name of just, I named it after myself. It was endearing. And I made some bags, and that's when Andy and Nikolai came around, where I just said, hey, I've got these coffee bags handwritten. I've got a couple of them. Would you like them? And they said yes. And that started the process of realizing, well, maybe I start selling coffee to get in front of people, talking about it, building a business. I built a website probably within 2 months after that, and started shipping around the country, and just started the process of bootstrapping a company. And that was right at the end of the fall into the winter quarter of our first year, and then just grew from there.
So he was building a website, running a business, while we had to study statistics.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Wow. Kudos, which is kind of a good transition of now who you are in since you've been in the program. And so, okay, you start the company, you're taking classes. How are you changing? Who are you now? Whereas when you first started, any expectations? Has the program met your expectations? And I know you also have like some pictures. Well, things were happening in school, so it's a very novel story that didn't happen much long ago, which is so relevant. So maybe tell us how it's been the last 3 years with school and program, social life, personal, all that.
Yeah, for sure. First thought comes to mind is I recently caught back up with my first mentor through Anderson. We got connected through the Center for Global Management, CGM, and I made a comment to him about how I felt naive back then at the beginning of the program. He said, "Oh no, you weren't naive. You had a very clear vision for like what you wanted to do. It just you actually went out and started to do it, and you've learned a lot, and you've gotten more confident and so forth. But I don't think you weren't naive." And I resonate with that because I think like in the end, who I am as an individual, I think is playing out a lot in how we do business and how we're trying to maximize our impact. So I was always that person before the business. I just now have this new vehicle. I mean, business can be for good, and how you can, take your effort and take your resources and really apply it to something special. And so, over the last 2 years, it's really been interesting to see how the business has evolved, and I've taken it different ways, or it's taken me in different ways. I mean, we've pivoted many times, as any entrepreneur will experience. And overall, I mean, I've been very fortunate that the pivots mostly happen because of opportunity, not because we're against the wall and we have to figure out something different. And so I've been really fortunate to experience that. And a lot of it does come down to, connections that I've made along the way, that there are people that I didn't know when I started the company, including Anderson Network, where whether it's customers, investors, talking about ways of expansion into new markets, I'm getting so much support from Anderson. And I also got a lot of support outside of Anderson. So first part I'll show you, which I'm wearing an Anderson hat, is an event that I did with a full-time MBA. And a lot of people wonder about FEMBA versus full-time versus EMBA. I love the crossover.
It's an ongoing pseudo rivalry.
Yes, exactly. But I find partnership in everything. And so I saw a partner in Marissa who has a matcha company. I mean, coffee matcha, pretty good pairing. So we run events together, and we do it on this patio that I got while I was building the company. You have to make ends meet. You have to find health insurance. And so I got a job at REI, which is the outdoor store. And I was working the customer service, helping you check out and make returns. And I met a wonderful woman named Therese. And Therese worked in the LA USD school system. And she helped me out by just being like a really supportive individual. And then she told me she has a cafe space. And so through a relationship that I didn't have before I began the journey, I met Therese. And she now is my landlord. She's my baker. She's my customer. She's like incredibly supportive. And so we run these events on the patio, and that's also where we got our roaster, which is shown in this photo. So we're a long way since the toaster oven days, but I still think back fondly to those. The roaster we have is a 12-kilogram roaster where we can roast 80 to 100 pounds per hour. And that really allowed us to open up the opportunity to partner and to grow and really maximize our impact. And so all of this is happening in a space in the heart of LA. And it really happened pretty quickly, to your point, over 2 years, where we moved into the space last year after growing the business in my apartment. And that space has really evolved a lot, where we're opening up a cafe. We have events that we're running, many of which are Anderson focused. And we're building a partnership business where we're working with a lot of coffee companies, coffee shops, including our biggest customers in Anderson Connection. Emerson was the EMBA president last year, and him and his business partner have built a really exciting business in LA, and we do all of their coffee, and I met them because of Anderson.
Wow. Jon, it's really fascinating also because I didn't know so much detail, but the things that you have had to go through while being in school, right? And you took also this job at REI. Did you take that because, also to get some sort of income, but did you find it also that it helped you with customer service, or did you already have that? It sounds like you come to me very personal, so it's not like people say, oh, I need that so I can practice on my customer service. But did you do that also because of that, or?
Yeah, I think it was definitely like job and healthcare, and my best friend worked there, so she got me the job. And then I think I stayed longer than I maybe initially anticipated. At first, it was just going to be the winter season when they're really busy. I stayed for a year and a half during, my Anderson experience, and a lot of that also came into the opportunities like Therese, meeting her and getting her support, and then I had the opportunity to use my coffee cart in front of the store every weekend, and that helped me get in front of people, practice that customer service beyond just within my role at REI. And then I ended up meeting a lot of other people through that. My head of operations right now came up to me while I was working the coffee cart. Wow. And he was fascinated by our business, and he also had a really strong background in cold pressed juice and was really interested. And now he takes on so many roles at the company. He's also a chef, so as we open the cafe, he's going to be the mastermind behind our food menu. And I would say REI is well known to be like a very mindful organization. The people that work there, I mean, it's between them and Trader Joe's, who has the more likable people. So I did surround myself with people that I think were admirable to kind of associate with.
I'm glad you're not hiring jerks.
No, Javier is the complete opposite of that. Such a caring person.
Wow. And what about within the program? Maybe any anecdotes or any classes, professors? We were both coming up the cohort of BCC, and you were doing HOMA, and you won the Judges Award, which is also still a big deal because you're competing among. I don't know, 10 ideas or something like that. But you won. So how was that, in addition to any class that comes to mind that you really enjoyed, professors or, any of those things that you can tell us?
Yeah, I definitely think because it goes back to that decision to go into the program with like a new mindset. I definitely shaped my program around my entrepreneurship experience. So I was very picky about the classes I took. Most of which are around entrepreneurship. I did take the entrepreneurship path that then led to BCC, and I would say HOMA and the team that we have, which we are continuing on after the program, which awesome. A lot of that comes back to just our ability to come together and have kind of a like-mindedness around wanting to build a business. Being an entrepreneur, people understood that I had relevant experience, and our first product ended up being a coffee exfoliant bar. So we're using the upcycled coffee grounds for the business.
Right? Or no, I remember not.
We changed our name.
Oh, the name. Yep.
Yeah, we're still working on the branding. HOMA is the current name. By the time this airs, maybe it's something different. But we all came together and understood we wanted to start something and take it on beyond the program. And so we've been building it, or we experienced that during the capstone with that in mind. And now we're incorporating, we found a formulation scientist to be an expert in actually bringing the product from our benchtop version, where we made it in my apartment, to now, a professional, like bringing it to life, finding a manufacturer. We have great exposure across marketing to operations to a physician that's leading all the sort of ingredient expertise and research. And it's super exciting to actually apply what I've learned in entrepreneurship as well in the program to bring a team together that wouldn't have happened without Anderson.
Wow. And you're also accepted into the Venture Accelerator, right?
Yeah.
And could you also tell people watching, listening, in your own words, what that is?
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the Venture Accelerator. It's one of those experiences where you get out of it what you put in. And for me, just showing up and starting to get connections that maybe we're in my industry, maybe we had like-minded attitudes towards entrepreneurship. But I definitely got a lot out of it in the form of just surrounding myself with a larger entrepreneurship ecosystem. There's definitely other entrepreneurs as Anderson students, but the accelerator has a unique program in that there are a lot of entrepreneurs that come into the program from outside of the university. And so you get to expand on your network. And I've partnered there's one I'm particularly excited about, Aorte Brands, which produces upcycled products in the hospitality industry. Joey and I are talking about how do we take coffee grounds into potentially a shoe or some other products. So there's these connections where you just have this like-mindedness around upcycling, around having impact, and I get to expand on that in partnerships in the real world. And so definitely the Venture Accelerator was one of those experiences beyond just the normal classroom experience that was definitely impactful.
Awesome. Thank you. Any classes or, you don't, it's not like you're required to take a class, but any class that stuck with you? It sounds like the Venture Accelerator was amazing.
Yeah.
Networks, all that. Any class or professor, or it's, you don't have to say.
I'll give two. One gets recency, but is also a fantastic class. Gail Northrup for social entrepreneurship. The speaker list and just how the class is really driving us towards actual, critical thinking around having impact is really impressive. One of the visitors was Homeboy Industries, and now I had heard about them being in LA for a while now, but to actually...
Dylan rocks the sweaters.
Yes. It's such an impactful organization. It's such a prideful organization for the city, and to actually hear the stories firsthand of some of their homeboys, homegirls that have now gone on to big roles within the organization. And then another class that I really liked was Robert Renee's Corporate Renewal. Robert Renee, he's an industry professor, was the COO at Harbor Freight and other big organizations, and he's actively a CEO. And so to pull that experience real time into the classroom was really, really impressive.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. And just one picture, because you were in Mexico, you were telling me before, and this is happening while he was in the program, probably taking group projects in Mexico, all the anecdotes. So can you just tell us what happened there, what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing within the coffee industry that I ended up realizing is the more you grow, the more impact you can have. And at first, you're just too small to really have a meaningful impact for a single farmer or producer. But as we grew, I got connected with other coffee companies that we started partnering with, including Blanca, who is building her coffee company, May Coffee, in Orange County. And we got connected. She's from Nayarit, Mexico, which is near Puerto Vallarta. And she really wanted to source from there, but didn't have enough volume herself. And I said, well, if we commit to it, we can probably work together. And I mean, it was a pretty insane situation in that we were running an event on our patio up until 8, 9 p.m. the night before, cleaning up. And I think I woke up at 1 a.m. that day to drive down to Tijuana, to fly to Mexico, to meet Hector and the farmer and the producing team, where we got to see firsthand the product. And this was the first time as a coffee entrepreneur in the first 2 years that I was building the company that I actually got to see the product. Different in appreciation when you're roasting it all the time than when I have traveled to a coffee farm before. And it was really impressive to actually see their operation, understand their vision for the company, and it's multi-generational. So to see how it's really lasted a long time and is enduring. And Hector, and we're getting this coffee delivered to Tijuana next week, and then I'm going to drive down with a van and pick it up. And we've been dealing with customs and the FDA and insurance companies, and that whole process is probably not worth its value in terms of savings, but it's part of the experience to really appreciate how coffee gets from these farms that we saw to gets on the road. We help support, get it across the border and to our facilities so that we can then start sharing it.
Wow. And again, I keep saying this, but all while in school, right? So
back by Tuesday morning to class.
You didn't change sections to the hybrid.
No. Yeah, this was only a couple months later. Yeah, I was always passionate about the weekend or weekday night classes and Saturdays, just because there's just such strong interaction and extracurriculars and stuff coming on campus for other events.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you so much. What about, so if you could tell us, what's the good, better, best within the 5-10 years? What do you want to be? Who do you aspire to be? In the short and long term.
Yeah, I think, and I mentioned the Homeboy Industries. I had a really good conversation with Jose from Homeboy Industries, who talked about how impact can be many-faceted, multifaceted. It doesn't just have to be what you originally sought out to do, because every action that you take and decision can be impactful. So what resonated with me is just this idea that we can have a lot of impact in front of us. So behind us, per se, is the producers, and really maximizing impact back to the farmers. But the way you build community, the way you drive positive change in the product that you're providing, and how people enjoy it, I think I'm really focused on. So we've done partnerships with nonprofits and offer percent of proceeds back to the nonprofits. Building partnerships with people like Marissa, where we share a lot of commonalities in wanting to, in her case, launch a matcha company, me launch a coffee company. So how do you support each other? There's a lot of impact that you can have that I think initially I didn't realize, but the next 5 to 10 years could definitely look like just continuing those partnerships and working together. And I mean, coffee is a very competitive industry, but in my eyes, there's just so much opportunity to work together to really have a place in kind of the environment. So I'm excited about the next 5 to 10 years about how that could play out.
Awesome. All right, as we start to land the plane, let's do some lightning rounds. Favorite restaurant?
In LA or anywhere?
Anywhere.
We're going to go with Uncle Bill's Pancake Shop. Probably not one to be expected. And not the one in South Bay, LA, the one in New Jersey, in particular the Wildwood, New Jersey location.
All right.
It's got coffee, so I mean, this is related.
Nice. What's the last song you heard, or what song is stuck in your head?
Immediately, I didn't listen to music on the way here. I was talking to someone, but I thought of Espresso from Sabrina Carpenter because we're talking so much about coffee.
Love it. I love it. And it's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's a little overplayed with like coffee companies and all. I get targeted a lot on social media for coffee companies, so I hear it maybe more than the average person. So nice. I'll give Sabrina Carpenter credit for that.
What's your favorite Anderson memory?
I think honestly Phil Week, and just some of those early interactions that you can think back on now and be like, wow, we just met and we just didn't realize what we were about to get into. And so to really reflect on those.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. What about best business advice that you want to give or that you received? Let's do that you received, actually.
Business advice that I received.
Or that you want to give.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that one.
Okay. For me, I really think I just don't see how I could have done this without the partnerships and the support from people. So I think, it goes back to those early days where I maybe was more hesitant about sharing what I was working on. I never came from this mindset that I had to be quiet about it. I was never in stealth mode, not knowing, someone could steal my idea. I just really thought about how, when I eventually started sharing it, I realized how many people had interest and ideas and expertise that I could work on. So for me, it was really about just be open about the business that you're trying to create. And you never know who's going to actually lean into it and have something to offer, whether it be a customer or, expertise that can really help you build the business.
Thank you. All right, and now we're getting to the bear hug.
Uh-oh.
So we're the UCLA Bruins, Grizzly Bear. Here, this is your... well, it could be a faculty, family, or friend who has helped you get to where you are, and using Dylanisms. If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah. So
that is essentially what you're dedicating to.
Okay. That's a tough one. I'll go with the first person I thought of. It's a classmate of ours named Bill Auxier. Bill, when we look back on that roastery, a lot of people don't realize how much he was supportive.
Wow.
He helped build and design the space. He was an early expert that I leaned on with his interest in food and beverage as well. And he was I would consider him the second person that I ever met in the program, but we both met at Anderson Palooza way back before we started the program. And he became, now a lifelong friend along with so many other people. So I really want to give him credit for his support and just being an entrepreneur alongside me, and just realizing that, you really aren't out there alone, like you're saying.
Wow. Bill,
Yeah,
shout out,
Bill.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of Bill stories too.
Yes.
Like in the marketing class, I'm sure everyone can tell in our marketing class.
He was very prominent in the operations class too, because he's been the head of operations at many companies. So I remember.
All right. So, any final words? The floor is yours. Any closing thoughts?
I mean, it's, I guess, I immediately reflect on just this experience that we've had, right? It's been 3 years and it's life-changing, and it's something that we get to build on for the rest of our lives. Our children benefit from it, our partners, and, it really can have a meaningful impact. It's worth all the work that we put into it. So it feels nice to celebrate our end of our journey. And I know it's bittersweet because we're going to miss each other, but we're also going to stay connected. So
Awesome.
I'm excited for that.
Thank you. Well, you have a transformative leader, shares success, thinks fearlessly, and drives change. And that's why we love talking to you. Thank you on behalf of the Anderson community. And thank you for being who you are. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Sal.
Awesome.
Thank you to the team.